Welcome to Redacted Tonight. This is the show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents. Every once in a while something comes along, a story comes along that is just such a beautiful example of late-stage disaster capitalism. It's so beautiful you almost think it must be a science fiction horror story or something, and you're just waiting for the crying clowns to jump out behind you. And the story I'm about to bring you fits the bill perfectly. By the way, was there ever a time when clowns were not terrifying? Some people insist they make children happy, but I say bullshit. Trying to convince the world that clowns used to be for societal enjoyment and didn't always make everyone's skin crawl is some kind of weapons-grade gaslighting. They're always horrifying. Deal with it. Back to the story. It's the tale of Foxconn in America. This story has everything. Liars, con men, bribes, destruction of people's careers, lives thrown away, and a shit ton of failure, wasted money, and broken dreams. And if that's not the all-American bedtime story, then I don't know what is. You recall Foxconn, right? Based in Taiwan. It's the world's largest electronics manufacturer with factories in several countries making products like iPhones, which means, I bet if they wanted to, they could make an iPhone that still has a fucking earphone jack rather than making me pay for the fuckity-fuck adapter. I bet they have all the earphone jacks you can imagine, just bags of them as far as the eye can see, and they're not even using them. They're just the workers just sitting there, just giggling. You know I'm right. Anyway, Foxconn's largest factories are in China, where they employ 1 million people, and they pay them so little and work them so hard that in 2010 they put up suicide nets to try to stop so many workers from killing themselves off the tops of the buildings. I'd like to see the PR person trying to spin that. Those aren't suicide nets, those are hammocks for your soul. Those weren't for suicide, they were actually nets that held the balloons to drop down when we made our 1 billionth iPhone. Anyway, Foxconn made a big grand announcement back in 2016, you might remember, that they were building a massive new American factory that could be like seen from space or some shit, so even aliens would see what dickholes we are. And they were gonna build this mega factory in the most exotic of all locales, Wisconsin. And as I've mentioned before, when I first heard about this, I thought, oh, those Foxconn execs don't know anything about America. Have you seen the size of your average Wisconsinite? They're gonna tear straight through those suicide nets. They'll have to double bag it or some shit. Anyway, this factory was announced with much fanfare by Donald Trump, Governor Scott Walker, Foxconn CEO Terry Guo, and all the other con artists involved. You see, when you get a bunch of con artists standing around, it's not just a circle of jerks, it's a circle jerk. They're all pulling each other's chains. And I'm not sure if pulling my chain originated from grabbing dick, but in this case, it's one and the same. In order for Wisconsin to get Foxconn to come to their fine cheese-laden state, they had to entice them with what normal human beings call bribes, but what they call tax subsidies. Ultimately, Scott Walker, the sniveling rat governor of Wisconsin who lost his throne back in 2019, agreed to give Foxconn $3 billion in bribes if they would employ 13,000 people. And still, you might think, well, 13,000 is a lot of people. Maybe that was a good deal for Wisconsin. No. In a best-case scenario, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau found the state wouldn't break even until 2043, depending on how many people Foxconn hired. Each job would cost taxpayers somewhere between $200,000 and more than $1 million. $1 million of taxpayer money for every job Foxconn gave away. And the state wouldn't even break even until 2043. That's insane. That's 13 years after the world is slated to end. Why would you ever schedule events that far in the future? I've stopped telling my bowling league I'll be at matches that are more than 3 weeks out because I figure the Fire Grizzlies will have eaten us by then. But it gets even worse. Apparently, royal dipshit Scott Walker didn't even require Foxconn to keep employing these people in order to get their tax subsidies. So Foxconn hired a certain number of people for the final 2 months of the year, the first deadline they were hitting, and then fired them all the following January just so the company could qualify for their bribes. It destroyed workers' lives who thought they had just gotten a great job. You see, in late-stage capitalism, well, in all capitalism, no one at the top gives a shit about you. You are like a bucket of mulch to the higher-ups. If they have somewhere to use you, then they'll do it. If they don't have somewhere they need mulch, then they'll toss you out with the garbage. There is not even the beginning of a thought about you as a human being, your life, your career, your wants, your needs, whether you gave up another job to join them, whether you have 2 hungry kids, a wife, 3 mistresses, 1 dog, 2 turtle doves, a butler, and an au pair in a tree. All of them are relying on you to bring home the bacon, and the company don't care. And if any of you are upset that I use the traditional family with the man bringing home the bacon, feel free to change it in your mind. A female 8-year-old going to work at the factory to feed her parents and her drug habit or whatever you want to do. Point being, no one that runs the business cares about your life, except when they put up the fucking suicide nets. But even that was because they were worried that if too many workers splatted on the sidewalk, then it would be too slippery for the others to get to work. And after all this, Foxconn, still to this day, hasn't manufactured shit. They stole some land from people who lived in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, yes, that's the name, to clear the way for their factory. They then constructed a few gigantic buildings like this one, but that's where it ends. They basically realized that it's not profitable to produce LCD screens in Wisconsin because guess what? They can get Chinese or Indian workers to make them for like 10 cents an hour plus a coupon for some chicken broth. You see, anyone who even vaguely understands the global market economy, which Foxconn should, knows that multinational companies always go where the labor is cheapest. They don't care about the humans. Remember that lesson from earlier? Take notes if you need to. Take notes, right? No, get the pad. The pen's over there. Get the pen. They don't care about the human buckets of mulch. They don't care about the countries because countries are made up of those humans they don't care about. And therefore, they will go wherever the people can be exploited the most. And as much as the right wing, which I include the Democrats when I say that, has gutted worker rights and worker compensation in America, we still get paid more than the near slaves in places like Bangladesh or China. So why did Foxconn ever agree to make a gigantic factory in a place that won't work for their business model of using suicidal slaves to make iPhones? The answer is that they do a lot of business with America, and they want America to like them. So carnival barker Terry Guo met up with carnival barker Donald Trump and said, I will build you a glorious factory that will make Wisconsin love you. And Wisconsin's a battleground state, so you'll win re-election. And Donald Trump and Scott Walker said, great, here's your bribe. Foxconn quickly realized this factory was insane, but they wanted to impress Trump. So they started trying to come up with other businesses that could fill that factory space. According to The Verge, Foxconn's search for a viable business led it to consider everything from fish farming to exporting dairy to renting storage space. Almost every idea collapsed in corporate infighting and a reluctance to spend money. Fish farms? They considered fucking fish farms? Man, the only thing that could make this story any better would be if in the midst of this multi-billion-dollar disaster, Foxconn CEO Terry Guo met a sea goddess who told him to run for president. Oh, wait, that really did happen. Terry Guo says a sea goddess appeared to him and told him to run for president of Taiwan. So he stepped down from Foxconn, ran for president, and lost in the primaries. I'm certain that what happened in that scenario was that after meeting with Donald Trump, Guo thought to himself, if someone this bizarre and idiotic can win in the US, then I could easily win in Taiwan. But no, Mr. Guo, in this country, here in the US, we have a far less refined palate when it comes to strong man leaders. We'll eat shit and call it high-end chocolate all day long. Point being, this Foxconn story, which is ongoing, is one of the deepest, darkest, late-stage capitalist boondoggles I've ever heard of. You see, at the end of the day, the reason capitalism is so dangerous is because it requires the complete denial of reality. In order to truly believe in it, you must think that infinite growth on a finite planet is physically possible, which it's not. Infinite growth isn't even possible in the pants I'm wearing. So as reality starts collapsing down around the systems, the mainstream media won't even bring up the dirty C word, capitalism. But writers at The Verge did say that this steadfast rejection of reality is where the Foxconn debacle stands apart from other development projects that fall short of their hype. The company's desperate quest to maintain appearances caused it to fail repeatedly in ways more destructive than mere ordinary failure would have been. The steadfast rejection of reality. That's not just Foxconn, and it's not just Donald Trump. It's the basis of our economic system. And no one is punished for this chaos either. That's the difference between the ruling elite and the average people. If you broke a contract or stole from a state or hired people under false pretenses or stole someone's land, you would be serving time right now. But not for the ruling elite. They just walk off into the sunset with their sea goddess. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast. This is Redacted Tonight.